What if being good isn't saving you, but slowly suffocating you? Your kindness, your virtue, your morality. What if it's all just a sophisticated poison you willingly drink every day? Today we're diving into one of philosophy's most disturbing questions, and I'm warning you right now, what you're about to discover might completely shatter how you see yourself and the world around you. Friedrich Nietzsche, the 19th century philosopher who declared God dead, believed our obsession with being good wasn't just misguided, it was a disease, a plague on the human spirit. And his cure? Well, it's so radical, so terrifying, that most people can't even bear to consider it. But by the end of this video, you'll understand why Nietzsche thought that embracing what society calls evil might be the only way to become truly healthy and alive. So buckle up, because we're about to explore the dark side of human nature that your teachers never told you about, and discover why the path to authentic living might require you to become everything you've been taught not to be. If this already feels uncomfortable, good. You're exactly the person Nietzsche was talking about. Stay with me. Let's start with a question. When was the last time you did something purely for yourself, without caring what others thought? When did you last act on pure instinct, without filtering it through the lens of what's appropriate? If you're struggling to answer, you might already have the sickness. Picture this. You're in a meeting. Your gut says this project is doomed. You want to speak, but the good voice whispers, "Don't ruin the mood, don't be difficult." So you smile, nod, betray yourself, and feel something inside you die a little. Congratulations. According to Nietzsche, you've just participated in your own psychological mutilation. This is the sickness of being good. He wasn't talking about genuine kindness that springs from a place of strength. He was talking about the artificial moral systems that force us to constantly betray our own instincts. He believed that most of Western morality had turned us into what he called sick animals. We're like majestic predators trained to fear their own teeth and claws. Tigers in cages pretending to be house cats. Wolves on leashes begging for scraps. We've forgotten what it means to be truly alive. But here's where it gets really disturbing. This sickness isn't just a personal habit. It's a cultural virus, inherited like a family curse. Every time we choose to be nice instead of honest, every time we suppress our legitimate anger to keep the peace, every time we put others' needs before our own natural desires, we're not being virtuous. We're participating in what he called slave morality. Slave morality sounds abstract, but you already live by its rules, and Nietzsche would say it's killing you. Consider this. How many people do you know who seem perpetually exhausted, constantly giving, always trying to please everyone, never able to say no? They've lost touch with what they actually want because they've spent so much time being what others expect. This is the disease Nietzsche diagnosed over a century ago, and it's a pandemic today. To understand this disease, we have to become genealogists of our own values. Nietzsche believed there were two fundamental moralities. Picture an ancient warrior, proud, ruthless, unapologetically alive. For them, good meant strength, bad meant weakness. It was a celebration of vitality, not a guilt trip. This was the foundation of what Nietzsche called master morality, associated with ancient aristocrats. It was created by the noble, the powerful, and the self-assured. For them, the concept of good was a simple self-affirmation. Good was synonymous with noble, strong, excellent, courageous. Bad was merely an afterthought, referring to that which was common or plebeian. There was no moral condemnation in it, no sin, just an aesthetic distinction between the high and the low. But then came the most brilliant, most insidious event in human history, what Nietzsche called the slave revolt in morality. This represents any moral system that reverses the values of master morality. The slaves, the oppressed, the weak, the suffering, could not overcome the masters through physical force. So they waged a psychological war. They performed a spiritual revenge of unimaginable genius. This revolt was born from resentment, ressentiment. This isn't simple anger. It is the impotent hatred of those who cannot act, a bitterness that festers in the soul and eventually becomes creative. Since they could not be like the masters, they declared everything the masters were to be evil. The masters' strength became evil pride. Their wealth became evil greed. Their natural desires became evil lust. Then they looked at their own condition, their weakness, their suffering, their inability to take revenge, and rebranded it as virtue. Their weakness became goodness. Their subservience became obedience. Their inability to strike back became forgiveness. Their suffering on earth became a ticket to paradise. The slave revolt in morality was a grand declaration. You may be strong, but we are good. And because we are good, we are superior. This might sound like Nietzsche was just being cruel or elitist, but look deeper. He wasn't celebrating oppression. He was pointing out that slave morality created a new kind of human, one who is suspicious of power, who fears life's instincts, and who finds comfort in the safety of the herd. Think about it in modern terms. How often do you see people who seem to take pride in their victimhood? Who compete over who has suffered more? How often do you see strength and ambition dismissed as privilege or toxicity? This is what Nietzsche saw happening on a massive scale. The systematic devaluation of everything that makes life vibrant and powerful. But here's the insidious part. It affects how we treat ourselves. When we internalize the idea that our desires are selfish, that our ambitions are wrong, we begin to resent our own vitality. We become sick animals, at war with our own nature. And this is where Nietzsche's cure becomes so terrifying. He believed that to become healthy again, we needed a revaluation of all values. We needed to question everything. We needed to reconnect with our instincts, our desires, our power, even if society labeled these things evil. This is where the Übermensch, or Overman, comes in. The Overman isn't a comic book hero. It's a person who has transcended the artificial moral categories that keep most people weak. The Overman creates their own values. They don't need anyone's approval to feel worthy. But here's what makes this so terrifying. To become an overman, you have to be willing to embrace what Nietzsche called evil. Evil, in this sense, is not cruelty or malice. It is the terrifying courage to stand alone and define your own good, separate from the herd. Imagine if you stopped caring about being liked. Imagine if you stopped apologizing for your ambitions. Imagine if you stopped feeling guilty for wanting more than what others think you deserve. This is what Nietzsche meant by becoming evil. Not becoming malicious, but becoming free from the moral systems that keep you small. It's about reclaiming your authority over your own life. But let's be honest about why this is so terrifying. In a world built on slave morality, the person who refuses to play by the rules is a threat. The person who puts their own flourishing first, who won't apologize for their strength. This person will be labeled selfish, arrogant, maybe even evil. And here's the kicker. By the standards of slave morality, they might be right, but Nietzsche would say, so what? Why should you accept moral standards that make you sick? Why live by values that drain your vitality? Consider the people in your life who seem most alive, most powerful. Are they the ones constantly trying to please everyone? Or are they the ones who have learned to say no, who have clear boundaries, who aren't afraid to prioritize their own needs? They've learned the difference between genuine compassion and slave morality. They've learned that you can't give what you don't have. True strength comes from being integrated with your nature, not at war with it. But Nietzsche's cure gets even more radical. He wanted people to become creators of new values. This is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of his philosophy, the idea that we are responsible for creating our own meaning. There's no external authority. There's just us, our nature, our creativity, and our will to power. The will to power, another concept that makes people uncomfortable. But it's not about dominating others. It's the fundamental drive of all life to grow, to expand, to overcome challenges. Every time you learn a new skill, create something beautiful, or overcome a fear, you're exercising your will to power. This is life. This is power. But slave morality, it tells you to fear it, to apologize for it, to be suspicious of this drive, to be humble, to be selfless, to deny your own desires for expansion and excellence. And the result? We become sick animals, apologizing for our own vitality. Now, I want to be clear. Nietzsche wasn't advocating for a might makes right mentality. He was saying that we need to reconnect with our own natural authority and creative power. The Overman doesn't trample on others. They've transcended the need for external validation. They generate their own sense of worth from within. But here's the practical challenge. How do you actually apply this in your daily life? It starts with small acts of self-assertion, learning to say no without apologizing, pursuing your interests without guilt, setting boundaries, ending relationships that drain you. And yes, this will make some people angry. People who have benefited from your self-sacrifice will resent your new boundaries. They'll call you selfish, dangerous, evil, good. That just means it's working. This is where the cure becomes truly terrifying for most people. It requires you to be willing to be disliked, to be misunderstood, to be seen as the villain in other people's stories. The cure begins not with a grand gesture, but with a single, honest no, a no to the demands that make you smaller. The choice is yours. You can continue living according to slave morality, constantly at war with your own nature, or you can embrace Nietzsche's terrifying cure and become someone who is truly, authentically, powerfully alive. But be warned, once you start down this path, there's no going back. Once you taste the freedom of living authentically, the sickness of being good becomes impossible to tolerate. So what will it be? Will you continue to be a sick animal, or will you embrace Nietzsche's terrifying cure? The answer will determine not just how you live, but who you become. And in a world full of people who have chosen the comfortable sickness of being good, the person who chooses authentic strength might just be the most revolutionary force of all. The final question is not if you have the courage to take it. It's simpler and more terrifying than that. Do you want to be liked, or do you want to be alive?